Hello, dear listener, and welcome. Tonight we're setting sail into one of the most haunting and beautiful questions that has ever brushed against the human mind. What was there before the universe? It is the kind of question that does not let go. It lingers in the quiet hours, when the room is still, when the world itself feels suspended in thought. Every child who has gazed up at the night sky, every philosopher who has held a candle against the dark, every scientist who has touched the edge of knowledge has stumbled on this riddle. Before galaxies, before stars, before the universe itself, what could possibly have been? At first glance, it feels like a simple question. Every moment we know has a before. Before sunrise, there is dawn. Before dawn, there is night. Our lives unfold like beads on a string, each connected to what came before it. So surely the universe, too, must have its string, its earlier bead, its hidden page. And yet, almost immediately, we find the question slipping through our fingers. For the Big Bang, that great blossoming of existence, was not an event that happened in time. It was the birth of time itself. If time began there, then perhaps asking what came before is like asking what lies north of the North Pole. The word before may not apply at all. Still, we cannot help but ask it. Our minds ache against the edges of silence. We close our eyes and try to picture nothingness, and what comes? Usually a blackness, a vast dark canvas. But even blackness is something. It has color, it has depth, it has form. True nothingness, a nothingness without even space, without even time, is almost impossible to imagine. And yet within that impossibility, there is a kind of wonder. The curtain of nothingness may not reveal its secrets, but it draws us closer, invites us to peer at its folds. Perhaps it is not an empty curtain at all, but one stitched with invisible patterns. Tonight, let's take a slow walk toward it, not to pull it open entirely, perhaps it never will open, but to trace its edges, to feel the mystery of what may lie beyond. Let us linger on the idea of before. It is such a small word, and yet it carries the weight of all our experience. To us, everything happens in sequence. Every meal follows a hunger. Every word follows a thought. Every thought follows another. Time is the river we float in, never able to climb out and look from the shore. But physics, in its quiet authority, tells us something astonishing. Time itself began with the Big Bang. It did not exist prior to it. There was no ticking clock, no silent countdown, no earlier. The very dimension that makes before meaningful was born in that instant. To imagine this, think of a book. You can flip back through the chapters, tracing the story to its first page. But what lies before the first page? Not another page, not a secret prologue hidden in the binding, only the absence of the book itself. When cosmologists trace the universe backward in time, using equations like the Einstein field equations of general relativity, they find themselves approaching a boundary, a place where the mathematics collapses. Space shrinks, time tightens, and the neat fabric of reality crumples. This point is called a singularity, though even that word may mislead us, for it is less a thing than the breakdown of our ability to describe it. So, if time itself began with the universe, is the question, what was before, meaningless? Perhaps. But human imagination has always pushed past the edges of what is allowed. We cannot help but wonder, might there be something beyond time? Something that does not need a before and after? Something that exists in a way our language cannot capture? Some scientists suggest that time might not be a single line stretching forward, but a circle, endlessly looping. If so, the Big Bang may not have been the first note, but one in an infinite cycle of expansion and collapse.
Others suggest that universes may bloom from one another like flowers, each birth a petal unfurling from the last. When we lean into such possibilities, we are no longer only scientists or philosophers, we are dreamers. And perhaps that, too, is part of the story. The recognition that the universe does not only challenge us with facts, but with mysteries that invite us to imagine what might lie just beyond the reach of our equations. Nothing. The word feels absolute, final, chilling. And yet, the more we examine it, the stranger it becomes. For in physics, even what we call empty space is not truly empty. Beneath its silence lies a restless shimmer, a dance of particles flickering in and out of being. This is the quantum vacuum, a foam of possibility, bubbling endlessly, a place where the very idea of nothing is filled with subtle activity. Imagine standing on a still pond at night. At first, it seems perfectly flat, perfectly quiet. But as you look closer, you notice ripples, faint and delicate, spreading and colliding across the surface. The vacuum is like this, not a barren emptiness, but a restless surface where reality itself stirs. From such a vacuum, some physicists propose, universes can emerge. A bubble forms, expands, blossoms into space and time. Our universe may be one such bubble, born not from nothing, but from a deeper kind of something, a field of quantum potential. But then another question rises, like a tide. If the universe emerged from the quantum vacuum, where did the vacuum itself come from? If the laws of physics shaped it, where did the laws themselves come from? Why is there something rather than nothing? Philosophers have long wrestled with this. Some argue that true nothingness cannot exist at all, that existence is the default state. Others suggest that nothingness is not only real, but inevitable, and the fact that we see something is the greatest riddle of all. And yet, perhaps nothingness is an illusion, a trick of perspective. For every time we try to imagine it, we give it shape, form, shadow. We cannot help but fill the void with something. Perhaps that is the clue, that the mind, and maybe even the universe itself, resists the possibility of absolute emptiness. And so, when we ask, what was there before the universe, we find ourselves not in silence, but in the deepest music of all, the song of a mystery that has no end. Long before physics, before telescopes, before equations etched symbols across chalkboards, humanity looked up at the stars and asked the same question: where did it all come from? And just as we do today, they felt the pull of mystery at the thought of what lay before. In every culture, across every age, myths bloomed like constellations, each one an attempt to lift the curtain of the unknown. In ancient Mesopotamia, people spoke of a watery chaos, endless and formless, from which the gods carved the heavens and the earth. In Egypt, the story began with a dark, boundless ocean called Nun, silent until a single mound of land rose and life took its first breath. Hindu philosophy envisions cycles upon cycles of universes, each born, expanding, dissolving, and then reborn, like the in and out breath of Brahman, the ultimate reality. Here, the question of before dissolved into the recognition of eternal rhythm, no beginning, no end, only the endless dance of creation and destruction.
The Greeks imagined chaos not as disorder, but as a yawning gap, a void from which Gaia, the earth, and Eros, the force of desire, emerged. And in the Norse sagas, the world began between fire and ice, from the vast emptiness of Ginnungagap, where sparks and frost collided to form the first being. Even in the stories of Genesis, the universe begins in darkness, a formless void, with the Spirit of God hovering over the waters until light is spoken into existence. Though these myths differ in imagery, they share something profound, the recognition that nothingness is never truly empty. There is always a seed, a chaos, a gap, a breath, a spark waiting to ignite. Human imagination has never accepted an absolute void. Our ancestors filled it with gods, oceans, rhythms, and spirit, because the idea that nothing gives rise to something felt too stark, too incomplete. When we hear these stories today, we may smile at their poetry, but perhaps they remind us of something essential, that the question of before the universe is not only a scientific puzzle, but a human inheritance. It has always been there, whispering to us across firelit nights and quiet skies. Step now from myth into science, and you find a story no less wondrous. The universe, as far as our instruments can tell, began around 13.8 billion years ago with what we call the Big Bang. But do not picture a firework in the sky, blasting into empty space. The Big Bang was not an explosion in space. It was the expansion of space itself. Imagine a balloon, its surface dotted with tiny marks. As the balloon inflates, each mark drifts away from the others. There is no center on the surface. Every point sees every other point moving away. In much the same way, galaxies are not flying through space from a single center. Instead, space itself is stretching, carrying galaxies along like leaves adrift on an ever-widening river. This expansion left behind a faint echo, a relic glow that still whispers through the cosmos today, the cosmic microwave background radiation. It is the afterglow of creation, a soft, uniform light that fills the universe, invisible to our eyes, but captured by radio telescopes. When scientists detected it in 1965, it was as if the universe itself confessed, "Yes, I had a beginning." And yet, even the Big Bang does not tell us what came before. Our equations work beautifully up until a tiny fraction of a second after it began, specifically 10 to the negative 43 seconds, the Planck time. Before that, the math collapses. We cannot peer directly into the moment of origin. So we stand at the threshold, holding our lanterns, peering into a fog. We know the universe expanded. We know it cooled. We know that from this searing beginning, matter formed, stars kindled, galaxies spiraled. But what happened before that tiny fraction of a second? Here, silence reigns. It is a silence filled not with emptiness, but with possibility. Theories abound. Perhaps the Big Bang was the rebound of a collapsing universe. Perhaps it was the sprouting of a bubble in a larger multiverse. Perhaps time itself unfolded only then, and there is no before at all. The Big Bang is not the final word. It is the doorway, and beyond it, mystery still waits.
Now let's look beneath the fabric of existence itself. In the world of the very small, the quantum world, reality is never still. Even in a vacuum, particles flicker in and out of being. Energy hums at the edge of nothingness. Space itself, on the tiniest scales, is not smooth but foamy, a restless sea where time and distance jitter and blur. Physicists call this the quantum foam, a frothing foundation beneath reality where uncertainty is law. It is here that the rules of the universe feel less like solid laws and more like shimmering probabilities. Some theories suggest that our universe itself may have arisen from such foam, that in the infinite bubbling of possibility, one fluctuation grew, expanded, and became all that we know. In this picture, universes are not rare but inevitable, countless bubbles rising in a cosmic sea. But the quantum foam raises deeper puzzles. If it existed before the universe, then where did it come from? And if the laws of physics allowed it, who or what wrote those laws? Is there something deeper still, a realm beyond even quantum uncertainty? Philosophically, the quantum foam feels almost mythic. It is chaos, fertile and unformed, from which order can arise.
It is the modern echo of those ancient waters of creation, the formless depths from which worlds emerge. And perhaps this is the heart of it. When we peer into the question of what came before the universe, we keep finding echoes, patterns, reflections. The old myths of chaos, the scientific story of quantum foam, both gesture toward the same intuition that nothingness is never truly nothing. There is always a shimmer, a potential, a seed waiting in the dark.
Long before telescopes pointed toward the heavens, long before equations etched symbols of meaning on blackboards, humans told stories. Stories about where it all began. Stories whispered around fires, under starlit skies, with eyes lifted toward the mysterious night. To the Babylonians, the universe emerged from a watery chaos, a cosmic ocean where gods fought, and out of their struggles the world was born. In the Hindu tradition, the cycle of creation and destruction is eternal, carried in the dance of Shiva, where universes bloom and collapse like endless lotus petals. In Norse mythology, before there was earth, sun, or sky, there was a yawning void called Ginnungagap, an emptiness between worlds of fire and ice. Out of this void, life stirred, and the cosmos was set into motion. The Greeks spoke of chaos, not chaos in the way we know it, but a vast gaping chasm, a primordial gap out of which all things emerged. The Egyptians told of a dark, boundless sea from which the first mound of earth rose, carrying with it the potential of creation. These myths are not scientific theories, but they reveal something profoundly human, our need to imagine something before. Even when knowledge was scarce and tools were primitive, people still felt the question burn in their hearts. Where did everything come from? What lies behind the curtain of existence? And if you listen closely, you'll notice a thread connecting all these myths, that before the world there was not simply nothing. There was often a void, a darkness, a chaos, a sea, a gap, but never pure emptiness. Perhaps even in our earliest imagination, true nothingness was too strange to accept. Perhaps it was always easier to picture something rather than nothing. Now let us step gently into science. If myths were humanity's first attempt to paint beginnings, science became our way of measuring them. The Big Bang Theory is not a story in the mythical sense, but it carries its own poetry. It tells us that roughly 13.8 billion years ago, the universe was once unimaginably hot, dense, and small. Not even like a ball, but more like a state beyond our comprehension, where space itself had yet to stretch. From that first instant, expansion began. Space stretched, time unfolded, matter formed. In the earliest moments, everything we know, galaxies, stars, planets, even us, was wrapped up in a single, tiny, blazing seed of potential. But here is the paradox. When we say the universe began with the Big Bang, we do not mean it exploded into something. It was not an explosion into space. It was the birth of space itself, time itself, the canvas upon which reality could be painted. Scientists can trace this story with surprising precision. The afterglow of the Big Bang still surrounds us in the form of the cosmic microwave background radiation, a faint, almost ghostly whisper of that fiery birth. Like fingerprints left behind at the scene of creation, this radiation tells us that the universe indeed emerged from something like the Big Bang. But notice, the Big Bang describes how the universe evolved after its beginning. It does not answer the deeper question, what was before? If time itself began with the Big Bang, can we even speak of a before? This is where science itself pauses, standing at the edge of its own map, staring into the fog, and yet curiosity presses us further. When physicists peer into the very small, they discover a world that does not behave like the one we touch.
At the quantum level, reality flickers, shimmers, and trembles with uncertainty. Particles appear and disappear in flashes of existence. The vacuum itself, what we call empty space, is never truly empty. It seethes with fluctuations, like tiny sparks in an invisible ocean. This restless foundation is sometimes called the quantum foam. And here lies a provocative thought. What if the universe itself was born from such fluctuations? What if the void is not nothingness, but a stage where potential waits, humming silently until it bursts into form? In this view, before the universe may not be a timeless abyss, but a quantum sea filled with ghost-like possibilities. A fluctuation in that sea could have ignited the Big Bang itself, setting space and time into motion. It is a staggering idea that out of what looks like emptiness, entire universes could bubble into existence. That what we call nothing may be infinitely fertile. And yet, even here, the question lingers. Where did that quantum foam come from? Did it exist forever? Or is it part of something even larger, an infinite fabric we cannot yet glimpse?
What if the universe is not a one-time event? What if creation is less like a spark and more like a rhythm? Some physicists and philosophers have imagined the cosmos as a great cycle, eternally expanding, collapsing, and beginning again. In this vision, the Big Bang was not the first beginning, but simply the latest beat in an endless drum. Imagine it. The universe expands, galaxies drift farther apart, stars burn out, and eventually gravity slows the expansion. The cosmos draws back inward, collapsing upon itself in a mighty contraction. And when everything gathers into a dense core once more, it ignites another birth. A new Big Bang, a new unfolding, a new cosmos. This idea, often called the cyclic universe, echoes ancient myths where time was not a straight line but a circle. To Hindus, time moves in great cycles called kalpas. To the Maya, worlds rise and fall, each one giving way to the next. Even in Greek thought, philosophers like the Stoics spoke of eternal recurrence, a universe that dies and is reborn forever. The scientific version of this idea suggests that what came before our Big Bang was another universe collapsing. And what will come after ours may be another born from our ashes. It is a comforting thought in some ways, that nothing is ever final, that creation itself has no beginning and end, only a rhythm, a cosmic breathing. And yet the question lingers. If the cycle has always been, why does it exist at all? Even in eternal recurrence, the mystery of why there is something rather than nothing remains. Now let us imagine another possibility, one even stranger. What if our universe is not alone? The multiverse hypothesis suggests that there may be countless universes, each with its own laws, constants, and forms of reality. Some may be barren and lifeless, others wildly different from ours, and some perhaps not governed by anything we would recognize as physics at all. In one version, our Big Bang is just one bubble in a vast, frothing sea of bubbles. Each bubble is a universe, expanding with its own rules, while countless others expand nearby, forever beyond our reach. Another vision says that every time quantum particles make choices, every time reality splits into possibilities, new universes branch off, each containing a different outcome. In one, you are reading this now. In another, perhaps, you chose to do something else.
The multiverse is dazzling to imagine. It answers some puzzles. Why are the laws of our universe so finely tuned for life? Perhaps because in an infinite number of universes, some must allow life, and we simply happen to live in one of them. But it also raises new mysteries. If there are infinite universes, what created the multiverse itself? If our Big Bang is just one bubble, where did the bubbling sea come from? The multiverse is not a solution so much as an expansion of the question. Instead of asking, why this universe, we ask, why any universes at all? To explore what came before, scientists look not outward, but backward, back through time toward the faintest light still echoing from the birth of everything. This light is the cosmic microwave background radiation, a soft glow that fills all of space, a whisper from 13.8 billion years ago. It is the afterglow of the Big Bang, stretched and cooled by expansion until it became faint, like embers fading from a once roaring fire. By studying these echoes, scientists can test ideas about what the universe was like in its earliest moments. Tiny ripples in this background light show us the seeds from which galaxies grew. Some physicists even wonder, could there be imprints left from a universe before ours? Could faint scars in this radiation be the fingerprints of a previous cycle or evidence of a collision between universes in the multiverse? These are bold possibilities, but evidence remains uncertain. The echoes are subtle, delicate, and the line between pattern and noise is thin. Yet every time scientists point their instruments at this faint radiation, they are, in a way, listening for whispers from before time began. The background glow reminds us that the universe is not silent about its past. It carries memory. It carries traces. And if we learn how to read them, perhaps they will guide us closer to the ultimate question, what came before? When we ask, what was there before the universe? We are secretly smuggling in another question. What was there before time?
But here lies the paradox. Time, as we know it, began with the Big Bang. Before that, there may have been no before. No ticking seconds, no flowing minutes, no past, present, or future. And yet, our minds resist this. We are creatures born in time. We wake, we sleep, we age, we remember. Everything in our experience depends on the river of moments moving forward. When we try to picture a world without time, we stumble. We imagine empty space stretching backward forever, but even that is still time in disguise. Physics does not make it easier. In Einstein's relativity, time is not separate from space. It is woven into the same fabric, a four-dimensional stage called space-time. When the Big Bang happened, space and time emerged together, like a curtain lifting to reveal a play. Without the curtain rising, the stage itself would not exist. Some physicists suggest that time is not even fundamental. It might be an illusion, a convenient story our minds tell to make sense of change. At the deepest levels, in the equations of quantum gravity, time does not appear at all. The universe simply is, timeless, eternal in a way that escapes language. But here's the strange twist. Even if time is not fundamental, we still feel it. We live inside its flow, like fish in water. And so when we ask what came before the universe, we're asking about something that might not even make sense. Asking about before time is like asking what's north of the North Pole, a question that reveals the limits of our imagination. Another possibility, as haunting as it is simple, is this. Maybe there was never nothing at all. Perhaps the universe has always existed in some form, not necessarily as the galaxies and stars we see today, but as energy, as quantum fields, as something beyond our comprehension. This idea turns the question upside down. Instead of wondering how something came from nothing, it suggests that nothing never existed in the first place. The ground state of reality, whatever it is, has always been something. Some physicists describe the vacuum not as empty, but as a restless sea of possibilities. Even in empty space, particles flicker in and out of existence like sparks from an invisible fire. In this view,
Nothingness is unstable, unnatural. The universe must exist because pure nothing cannot. This echoes an old intuition. The philosopher Parmenides of ancient Greece declared, "Nothing comes from nothing." To even speak of nothing, he argued, is already to give it a kind of existence. So maybe the question is not, why is there something rather than nothing, but why did we ever expect nothing in the first place? Perhaps the default is existence. Perhaps the strange thing is not that the universe exists, but that we ever thought it wouldn't.
But let us wander even deeper into the paradox of nothing. What would true nothingness actually be? Not empty space, because space is something. Not darkness, because darkness is the absence of light, and that still assumes light exists. Not silence, because silence is the absence of sound, and sound requires the possibility of vibration. True nothing would mean no space, no time, no laws, no potential, no possibility. Not even emptiness. A pure absence so absolute that even the word absence is too much. But here's the catch. We cannot imagine it. Every attempt slips into something. Even our thoughts about nothing are filled with shapes, colors, words, comparisons. The human mind is incapable of picturing a state of absolute non-being. And perhaps the universe itself is the same. Maybe nothingness is not only unimaginable, but also impossible. Nature abhors a vacuum, as the saying goes. Perhaps reality abhors nothingness itself. In quantum physics, even the emptiest state is alive with fluctuations. Energy bubbles up, particles appear and vanish. The void is not void, it is restless, fertile, pregnant with possibility. So when we ask what came before the universe, one answer may be this: not nothing, but the impossibility of nothing. The universe exists because nothingness could not hold. At some point in the long story of stars and galaxies, the universe gave rise to something new: awareness. Through us, the cosmos began to notice itself. Atoms formed molecules, molecules formed cells, and from cells emerged minds capable of asking questions. Now, here you are, listening, breathing, pondering what came before everything. Consciousness is not separate from the universe. It is made of the same stardust, the same energy, the same laws. And yet, it reflects the whole in a way that nothing else does.
When you look at the night sky, you are not just observing, you are participating. The very act of wondering ties your small life to the vastness. Some thinkers, like Carl Jung, spoke of the human mind as carrying archetypes, deep patterns that seem older than any individual. Could it be that our capacity for wonder is one of those patterns, echoing the universe's own unfolding? Perhaps consciousness is not an accident. Perhaps it is the mirror the universe polished for itself so it could peer into its own depths. And so, when we ask, what was there before the universe? Maybe part of the answer lies within. For through consciousness, the question and the questioner are the same. There's a phrase often whispered by poets and scientists alike. We are the universe remembering itself. Consider this. Every thought you have is powered by chemical reactions in your brain. Those chemicals were forged in the cores of ancient stars. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen you breathe, all were born in cosmic furnaces billions of years ago. So when you wonder about the Big Bang, the wondering itself is made possible by the ashes of earlier universes. Your curiosity is written in the language of the cosmos. Memory is usually thought of as personal. You remember childhood, places, voices, fragments of your own life. But perhaps memory is larger than that. Perhaps the very fabric of reality holds echoes of what came before, in radiation, in gravity, in the laws themselves. And when a conscious being gazes into those echoes, it is as if the universe is remembering. Through you, the cosmos recalls its own history, its own questions, even its own silences. If that is true, then asking what was there before the universe is more than curiosity. It is a form of remembering, not of events, but of belonging. A reminder that we are not guests in the cosmos. We are a part of it. To explore what was before the universe is to brush against infinity. Infinity is not a number. It is not large in the way a mountain is large. It is a concept that stretches beyond all boundaries. Every time we try to hold it, it spills through our fingers like sand. Philosophers have wrestled with infinity for thousands of years. Can something infinite exist in reality, or is it just a trick of the mind? Some argued that an actual infinity of time or space is impossible. There must always be a beginning, a boundary. Others said the opposite, that limits are illusions, and infinity is the most natural condition of all. When applied to the universe, infinity becomes even more mysterious. Was there an infinite past? Will there be an infinite future? Is space itself infinite, with no edge, no end? And if there are infinite universes, as the multiverse suggests, then every possibility exists somewhere, repeated without end. Infinity does not solve our question, it deepens it. For if the universe is infinite, it may have no beginning, no before. If it is finite, then what lies beyond its edges? In either case, infinity humbles us. It reminds us that our minds, built to measure days and seasons, are peering into realms far beyond their natural scale. And yet, in that humility, there is also wonder. For even if we cannot grasp infinity, we can still feel its presence in the endless sky, in the rhythm of numbers, in the eternal questions that pull us forward. Somewhere, in the vast silence after the Big Bang, something remarkable happened. Atoms began to arrange themselves into patterns, patterns into living cells, and cells into beings that could feel. From starlight and dust, consciousness emerged. When you close your eyes and think, when you drift into memory or dream, you are participating in one of the strangest events in cosmic history, matter reflecting on itself. Consciousness is not separate from the universe. It is carved from the same fabric, the same laws, the same restless particles that dance in galaxies. And yet, it is different. It holds a mirror up to existence. In the glow of awareness, the universe became self-aware. Through your eyes, it sees. Through your questions, it wonders. Through your longings, it reaches beyond itself. Think about that for a moment. You are the cosmos, distilled into a form that can ask questions about the cosmos. The wonder you feel when looking at the night sky is not random. It is the deep recognition of origin meeting origin. Some traditions in philosophy and science whisper about this. Carl Sagan once said, "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." And Carl Jung suggested that the patterns of the human psyche, myths, symbols, archetypes, carry something older than any one person, as if the mind itself remembers the universe's unfolding. So when you ask, what was there before the universe, you are not just being curious. You are performing the very act the universe made possible through you. Consciousness is the mirror in which reality gazes at itself, and the question itself may be the reflection the cosmos has always sought. Look at your hands for a moment. The calcium in your bones was forged in an ancient star that died billions of years ago. The iron in your blood was formed in a supernova, scattered across the galaxy and gathered again into your body. Even the oxygen you breathe was crafted in stellar furnaces, recycled endlessly by plants, oceans, and atmosphere. You are not simply in the universe, you are the universe, condensed, intricate, alive. And so the idea arises, perhaps we are not just observers but participants in memory. Perhaps through us, the cosmos remembers. Memory usually feels small, personal. You recall your childhood bedroom, the taste of fruit in summer, the sound of someone's laughter. But when we step back, we see memory woven into the universe itself. Fossils are memory. Light from distant galaxies is memory. The cosmic microwave background, still glowing from 13.8 billion years ago, is memory. And human consciousness? It may be the most delicate memory of all, a way for the universe to gather its fragments and weave them into story. When you wonder what was there before the universe, you are, in a way, reaching back into the universe's own deep archive. Your curiosity is stardust remembering its origin. Your thoughts are the echo of ancient explosions translated into language. This is why the question feels so powerful. It is not a puzzle to be solved, but a remembering to be lived. The very act of wondering places you in continuity with the cosmos. The mystery becomes a form of belonging. Infinity. The word is simple, but the idea is bottomless. It is not just big, it is beyond measure, beyond containment, beyond end. When we try to imagine infinity, our minds play tricks. We picture endless stars stretching across the sky. We imagine numbers climbing forever. But infinity is stranger. It is not a destination. It is a condition without limits. Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. Aristotle distinguished between potential infinity, the idea that numbers can always keep going, and actual infinity, the idea that something infinite exists all at once. To him, the first was acceptable, the second troubling. Later thinkers, like George Cantor, dared to show that infinities come in different sizes, each stranger than the last. Now place infinity beside the universe. Was the past infinite? Did it stretch back forever with no beginning? If so, then asking what came before may be meaningless, for there was never a first. Or is time finite, beginning with the Big Bang, in which case we face the harder question, what lies beyond that beginning? Infinity also appears in cosmology. Some models of the universe suggest it is spatially infinite, with no edge, no boundary, no outside. If this is true, then even the Big Bang was not a birth of all space, but the beginning of the space we can see. Beyond it, forever more. The thought is dizzying. In infinity, every possibility may exist somewhere. Perhaps every arrangement of atoms, every version of a life, every history plays out endlessly in an infinite expanse. And yet, even if infinity is real, it does not dissolve the mystery. For if time and space are infinite, why do they exist at all? Why infinity instead of nothing? Infinity humbles us. It reminds us that our minds, evolved to count seasons and measure days, cannot fully hold such vastness. And yet, in trying, in touching the idea, we experience a kind of wonder that feels infinite in itself. Long before telescopes or equations, humanity looked up at the night sky and wondered. For ancient people, the stars were not distant suns, but lanterns of gods, ancestors, or spirits. The question of what came before was not framed in terms of physics, but in poetry, myth, and reverence. Every culture carries a creation story. In Hindu thought, the cosmos emerges and dissolves in vast cycles. Brahma breathes universes into existence, and with each exhale they vanish, only to return again in endless rhythm. In the Egyptian tradition, the world rose from a dark, formless ocean called Nun, and from its waters the first mound of land appeared, carrying with it light and life. The Hebrew Bible begins with the haunting line, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Yet, even here, mystery lingers. What was before the beginning? What is this nothing from which everything came? Mystics of many faiths have whispered that before creation there was not emptiness, but a fullness too great to name, a divine presence beyond space and time. Buddhist philosophy speaks differently. There is no beginning and no end. Existence is an endless flow of causes and conditions, like waves on water, with no first wave, no final one. Taoist sages describe the Tao as the nameless source, the eternal void from which the 10,000 things are born. When we listen to these visions, we find that science and religion are not as far apart as they sometimes seem. Both stand at the edge of language, peering into mystery. Both admit that before the universe is a question too large for ordinary words. Perhaps the myths are not literal descriptions, but poetic attempts to capture truths that numbers cannot hold. When physics speaks of quantum foam and multiverses, and when ancient hymns speak of the breath of gods, maybe both are pointing to the same unfathomable depth, the fertile darkness out of which all light arises. Science is powerful. It has carried us from caves to spacecraft, from superstition to the discovery of black holes and DNA. Yet, even science has edges, and nowhere are those edges sharper than in the question of what was before the universe. At the heart of physics lies the Big Bang. For decades, it has stood as the most successful model of cosmic origins. But when we push back to the first instant, the Planck time, a fraction of a second after the bang, the equations begin to unravel. General relativity, which describes gravity and space-time, clashes with quantum mechanics, which governs particles. The two great pillars of physics refuse to stand together at the very beginning. It is as though the universe has hidden its birth certificate behind a curtain of fire and silence. We can see the afterglow, the cosmic microwave background, the faint whisper of the universe's childhood, but the exact moment of creation, if it even exists, lies beyond our reach. This limit is not just technical but philosophical. Language itself begins to fray. When we say before, we are already assuming time exists. But if time was born with the universe, then before the universe may be a contradiction, like asking what lies north of the North Pole. Some scientists suggest new frameworks: string theory, loop quantum gravity, multiverse scenarios. Each offers tantalizing glimpses, but none yet hold the key. The universe guards its silence well. And perhaps this is fitting. If existence revealed all its secrets at once, wonder would vanish. Mystery is the companion of curiosity. The fact that we cannot know fully, that our equations stumble at the edge, keeps the question alive. It keeps us searching, dreaming, building. Despite centuries of philosophy and decades of cosmology, the question persists. What was there before the universe? Children ask it with wide eyes, scholars wrestle with it in journals and conferences, mystics hold it close like a prayer. It is not a question we outgrow. It is a question that seems woven into the fabric of being human. Why does it haunt us so? Perhaps because it touches our deepest vulnerability, the awareness that we exist, but we do not know why. We long for roots, for an origin story that explains us. Without it, we feel like wanderers in a dream without a beginning. And yet, the persistence of the question may itself be the answer. The very fact that we wonder points to something profound, that human consciousness is not content with surfaces. We reach beyond, always beyond. A cat does not ask what came before the universe. A tree does not write poems about infinity, but you do. This relentless questioning may be the spark of the cosmos itself, burning within us. Maybe the question refuses to die because the universe refuses to forget. Maybe it is not for us to find a neat solution, but to dwell in the wonder of the asking. And so the story continues. Science will probe deeper, myths will retell themselves, poets will search for words, and each of us in our quiet moments will feel the pull of the infinite horizon. The question is not a problem to solve, but a mystery to live. Imagine lying under a night sky, stars scattered like fireflies on a black canvas. You let your eyes adjust, and the longer you look, the more you see. First the brighter stars, then the faint clusters, then the ghostly ribbon of the Milky Way stretching overhead. It feels endless, yet you know this is just one galaxy among billions. As you stare upward, the question stirs again, what came before all this? It doesn't feel like a scientific puzzle anymore. It feels like a dream, an old recurring dream humanity has always carried. Perhaps the universe itself is dreaming through you. Every neuron that fires in your brain is made of atoms forged in stars. The patterns of thought that move through you are shaped by the same mathematics that shapes galaxies. When you wonder about the origin of the cosmos, maybe the cosmos is wondering about itself. In this dreamlike view, before the universe is not something to be solved like a riddle. It is something to be inhabited, like a story or a melody. The ancient myths, the equations of physics, the paintings of artists, the prayers of monks, they are all fragments of the same dream. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine drifting backward, past the invention of language, past the birth of humanity, past the first cells, past the molten earth, past the collapsing clouds of gas. Drift further still, past the first stars, past the cosmic microwave background, back to the brink where time and space dissolve. Here, imagination hovers at the threshold. Some say there is nothing. Some say there are infinite universes. Some say there is a field of pure possibility, shimmering with unborn worlds. Others say there is silence so deep it becomes presence. And maybe the dream is that all of these are true, depending on how you look. The more we explore, the clearer it becomes. The question of what was before the universe may never give us a single final answer. But that does not mean the question is useless. Quite the opposite. It may be one of the most important companions we have. Think of how this question has shaped human history. Without it, we would not have myths of creation or the first philosophers gazing at the stars. We would not have telescopes scanning the heavens or particle colliders probing the smallest scales of reality. We might not even have poetry, for poetry itself is born from the feeling that words are not enough. The question keeps us humble. It reminds us that however clever we are, however many theories we build, there is always more than we know. And it keeps us curious. It is the lantern that lights the road ahead, even if the road has no end. Perhaps it is not the answer that matters, but the movement the question creates in us, the way it stirs awe, humility, and wonder, the way it makes us pause in the rush of daily life and look up at the night sky, feeling small, yet connected to something vast. To live with this question is to live with mystery as a friend. And in a noisy world where so much clamors for certainty and conclusion, mystery offers a kind of quiet freedom. It whispers, you don't have to know everything. You only have to wonder. And so the question continues, walking beside us, whispering in our ears at night, glimmering in the starlight, humming in the equations of physicists, and glowing in the dreams of children. It is not a question to silence, it is a question to carry, gently, like a flame in the dark. When we ask, what was there before the universe, we are already tangled in time. The word before assumes a clock ticking, a sequence of moments. But what if time itself was born with the cosmos? Physicists suggest that time, as we know it, might not stretch endlessly in both directions. Instead, it may have unfurled like a ribbon at the moment of the Big Bang. If that is true, then asking what came before is like asking what lies north of the North Pole. The very question dissolves under its own weight. And yet time feels so real to us. The seconds that pass, the years we live, the memories we carry, they all insist on a flowing river. Could it be that time is not fundamental, but an illusion woven by the mind? Some physicists whisper this possibility, that time is not a thread of the cosmos, but a story we tell ourselves, a way of arranging change into sequence. If time is an illusion, then before the universe might be a mirage. Instead of a beginning, perhaps there is simply being, an eternal presence, without start or end. The cosmos doesn't arrive, it simply is. And in some deep way, so are we. But maybe the universe does not need a single beginning. Maybe it is not a one-way road, but a circle, endlessly repeating. Ancient traditions imagined this. Hindus spoke of universes born and destroyed in cycles of creation, each lasting billions of years. The Stoics of Greece believed in the ekpyrosis, a universe periodically consumed in fire, only to be reborn. Even modern science entertains such rhythms. Some cosmologists suggest that the universe may expand, then contract, then bounce into life again, like a cosmic heartbeat. If true, then before this universe was simply another universe, and before that another still, each leaving faint echoes behind. Perhaps black holes are the seeds of new realities, hidden gardens sprouting from collapsed stars. Perhaps our own Big Bang was not a beginning, but a handoff in an infinite relay race. There is comfort in this vision. It tells us that endings are never final, and beginnings are never absolute. Everything is folded into the great cycle of return. The universe, like a phoenix, endlessly dies and rises, carrying us with it. And so, after all the exploring, science and myth, equations and dreams, we find ourselves back where we started, under the night sky, looking up, wondering. We have peered into quantum foam, walked through multiverses, listened to ancient myths, and even questioned time itself. Yet the mystery remains. Maybe it always will. And maybe that is the point. Because the value of the question is not in its answer, but in the way that it slows us down, softens us, makes us gaze at the stars a little longer. It gives us humility, reminding us how small we are, and it gives us wonder, reminding us how vast everything is. So tonight, let the question linger. Don't rush to solve it. Let it float beside you like a companion. What was there before the universe? Nothing? Everything. A silence too deep to name. You don't need to decide. You only need to feel the wonder of not knowing. The universe holds you in its mystery, and that is enough. Take a breath. Let the thought drift into the background. If your eyes grow heavy, let them close. If your mind keeps wandering, let it wander gently. The question will still be here tomorrow, waiting like a quiet star. And with that, we leave the door open, not closed. For some mysteries are not endings, but invitations to dream. Thank you for wandering with me tonight through questions too vast to answer and mysteries too beautiful to resolve. If you've enjoyed this quiet journey, I'd be grateful if you could leave a like or subscribe. It helps me keep making these calm explorations for you. To those already part of this little community of curious minds, thank you. You're proof that even in a noisy world, there's still space for wonder, for stillness, for slow thought. And now, if your eyelids are heavy, let them fall. If your thoughts are still spinning, let them drift with the stars. The question of what was before the universe will still be here tomorrow, waiting softly in the background. Until next time, rest well, dream deeply, and remember, the mystery is always with you. Good night.